All right, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers here with our co-host, Matt Ryder, the CEO of Seventh Level. So, Matt, what I want to do today is really talk about the mental state that a salesperson has to have to not just be average, not to be above average, not to even be good at sales, but to be great at sales. And once they get great, to become the best there is in their industry, their company, their industry. There's different stages of that. And I want to talk a little bit about the article that just was written about you, so about our CEO from the International Business Times there. I think that publication is in Australia, right?
Yeah, it's a Singapore, Australasian-based one. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. So big publication there in Singapore and Australia, where we have our company headquarters there in Sydney. International Business Times wrote an article on you being the CEO of Seventh Level, but how you took your skills that you learned in the military, like mental toughness, just kind of dealing with situations, and how you apply that as a CEO. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, give us a little bit of a background of your military background, Special Forces, Australia. I think everybody'd like to know that.
Yeah, for sure. So I joined the military when I was 19 years old. I was in university in Miami doing pre-med. So that's what I was doing.
One of the smart guys.
Yeah, and then decided to join the military. So I got accepted into a scheme with MARSOC, which is the Marine Special Forces unit. But then I had a friend of mine who was in SAS, which is like one of the Australian Tier 1 units. And he was like, actually, come over here. I was an Australian citizen. So I came to Australia. It was better pay, better working conditions, stuff like that. Went over to Australia, then went into paratroopers, then transitioned from paratroopers into Special Forces. And then throughout Special Forces, did a couple of different roles. Was like reconnaissance platoon. I was like a medic in there as well. And then I went into snipers. And then I finished off I did a bunch of deployments as a sniper and as like a recon guy. And then when I finished my deployments, then I went into like a domestic counterterrorism role. So I spent the last couple of years in the military doing anti-terrorism stuff.
Okay, so why did you it's one thing to go in the military. It's another thing to get into Special Forces. It takes a different breed to get into the Special Forces. I have a lot of my family background that's in the military and stuff, not Special Forces, but they always would talk about the Special Forces guys, right? So what prompted you to get into not just the military, but really get into the Special Forces?
Yeah, so I actually saw like an article when I was about 18. And it was a guy hanging off the side of a roof, all covered in black, hanging off a building with like an MP5. And I was like, oh, I want to be that guy. So I literally took that to recruiting and I was like, how do I be that person? And they said, this is the pathway. And I went, okay, I'll do that. And then so did all the testing. It took about, I would say, it took 2 years of solid training from the time I started to the time I finished to be able to be in a position where I could do those courses. Yeah. Because they're a whole separate subject. And that's what I finished off doing. But I just had a vision. I had a very, very clear vision of what I wanted. And I was very, very singularly focused at the time. I didn't have girlfriends. I didn't do anything but train and put myself in a position where I could be successful because I knew I was required and I had to outwork everybody. Yeah. From the 1,000 people that initially applied, 7 of us finished.
Okay. So there's obviously it's outworking. Right? It's outworking them and really outlearning them because there's going to be some mindset skills that you're going to have to acquire to be able to be at that level. Because there's probably a lot of guys that maybe could run faster or climb up a building better, but it's probably your mental state, I'm assuming a little bit, that would have to do something with having success in the Special Forces. Yeah, like
I used to say toughness, not fitness. Because I used to run selections as well. And I was like, you want to be really fit coming in, but they're going to destroy that by not feeding you and not sleeping, right? So it definitely makes it easier. But, for example, one of the things that we did was they have a workout where it only stops when somebody gives up. Now, when you give up, you have to exit the course and you're never allowed to reapply ever again. Right? Ever. So if you voluntarily withdraw, that's it. You're done. You can never reapply, right? For any SF unit. So it's a big deal. That's pretty much killing your dreams. Yeah. You probably trained for 6 months to get there. We worked out for 7 hours. The guy next to me shit, pissed, and threw up at the same time. Yeah. I had a total, it kept going, never stopped the whole way, never broke stride until somebody gave up and it was 7 hours in. And I said to myself, I could not believe he did that. Right. I was like, I cannot believe, man, it had to end sometime. Yeah. Like this is just a blip in the radar of the world.
Yeah.
Like we're going to look back at this in 3 years and think it was funny. And I do, I think it's funny. And I could never imagine giving up. It never like actually doing it. I would tell myself, okay, around the next bend, I'm going to stop. Around the next bend, I'm going to stop. And then I get to the next bend and I go, don't be a sissy, just keep going. I go, okay.
Oh, so that gave you a lot of mental toughness, obviously. Now, so you become so special forces to a sniper, that's probably even a different breed there. So what caused you to want to be a sniper?
I was told. So I was on the range one day, snipers were down that end, and I was like just normal SF dude, right? Down this end, and we were shooting, and all the shooting is done. They have like digital readouts. It's all very fancy, right? Yeah. And I was a very good shot. So at 400 meters with an M4, right, or an AR-15, I was grouping about 2-3 centimeters, right?
Oh, okay.
And then the head of snipers came down and said, "Oh, it's not bad. What's your name?" And I said my name, and he goes, "Okay, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Cool, man." A day later, they said, "Hey, Matt, you're on sniper course." I was like, "Oh, no, I didn't put my hand up for it." They go, "This isn't a choice, buddy. Like, that's what you're doing. Pack your bags. You leave for 8 weeks tomorrow."
Okay.
So 8-week sniper course. And then from there,
but what type of mental, and I'm going to transition this over to business and sales in a second, how you transition for everybody to see the mental state. So you have this mental toughness. As a sniper, it probably takes even a whole different level of mental toughness, because I'm assuming a lot of times you're kind of on your own, right? You're not like with a big group of guys. Were you on your own quite a bit, or tell us about that?
Yeah, groups of 3 to 6 is usually the max that we used to roll around with. I think the reason why I like sales and sniping, I think actually have a lot of parallels, is because, and why my brain works, is because they're both very data driven. Like, when you're shooting in Afghanistan, the air is much thinner, you're much higher, there's much less bullet drop, and you know what I mean? Like the cold and the heat, everything gets affected the bullet differently with, flashpoint times and stuff like that. So lots of data is required to be able to do your job effectively. And you have to look at that, and you can't just be like, no, this is how I always shoot. It's different, right? Same with sales, is you got to have a look at things, and you got to have like a detachment. And I was having a conversation with a younger sales rep today. I was like, hey man, like you're a 15% guy. I was like, you're going to be incredibly frustrated for a long time if you think you're a 50% guy, right? But you just have to accept what you are and then get better.
Yeah.
So if you close 1.5 out of 10 deals, high five, that's like your handicap on a golf course.
Yeah.
Handicap on a golf course is a snapshot of you on a good day.
Sure.
Close rate is a snapshot of you on a good day, right? So it's like you have to be okay with that, and you have to understand who you are, and that data plays a huge role in how like detached you can be from the sale. And it's the same with sort of sales and sniping. And also, snipers are the only group in the military that are never told how to do something; they're just given an end state.
Okay.
Because nobody really understands how snipers work. Unless you have been one, it's very difficult to understand all the different nuances of the job. And so it's like the leaders were never sniper qualified because it's such a hard thing to get qualified in. Those guys never went through that. So they would just go, hey, we need this done. And you go, deal. That's it. You'd walk away. You do all of your internal planning. You wouldn't have to tell anybody anything. They just know that it's done. You go, we're in place.
Yeah. So you basically, it was like your own business, right? Like nobody told you what, they just said, hey, we need you to do this. And they didn't tell you how. You already knew how, and you just went and did it, basically.
Exactly. And if we didn't know how, we just figured it out.
Yeah. So, there's a good quote in here in this article, that they did on the interview with you. And you said, I want to read this, and I want to get your comments on here. You said, last is an ownership of problems. There are always reasons why it's too hard to do something, but if you can't take ownership and take a situation that isn't your fault, but look at it like it's your problem, then you can't own the solution. He said, we used to get orders that we all thought were crazy, and we were going into situations that were just dangerous. That wasn't our fault, but it sure was our problem. So how have you taken that and then transitioned that? You're the CEO now of 7th Level here, but how did you transition that into selling as a salesperson?
Yeah, so I think my thing whenever I was in sales was like, okay, cool. Like if I want to make $60,000 a month in commissions and I make an average of $1,000 a sale, right? I got to make 60 deals happen. Okay. Yeah. In order to make 60 deals happen, how many to turn up? I need 80 to turn up. Okay. In order to get 80 to turn up, how many do I need to book? Okay, I need to get 100 to book. Okay. Now, given the context and the confines of this account and what this business can provide me from like a warm lead perspective, how many sales calls can I book? If it's only 60, I have a gap of 20. That's not my fault. It is my problem. I now have to go out there and I have to find 20 calls a month because and I want to have an element of redundancy so that like you as an account holder is not solely responsible for my income because I have kids, I have mouths to feed, I have cars, I have a mortgage, I have all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like I need to take ownership over my ability to make money.
Yeah.
And I would do everything I can to
setting around like, oh my gosh, this week their ads have gone down in half. I don't have as many leads. Like instead of you sitting around complaining about it, you would maybe get into a Facebook group and DM people. You would make cold calls. You would get more prospects because it wasn't your fault that the ads were down for the company, but it sure was your problem.
Exactly, because I don't want anyone else's ability to do something or someone out of my control that I don't have contact with. Yeah. I don't want they rely on them for me to make money. If I want to make money, I'll go out there and I'll figure out ways to make more money. Now, the answer isn't get more per sale or get more commission. The higher is usually volume and consistency. So it's like, what can I do to make more money? Now, if I get paid as cash, then I'll collect more cash. I'll call all the clients.
Yeah.
And I'll go, hey, man, how are you doing? How are you having some wins? Hey, we actually have a slight discount if you end up paying in full. I know you have $7,000 of a new contract. If we do it for 6, will you pay it out today? I will. Perfect. Let's go. So there's options there. The other options, I can go and cold call. And that's why like having sales training and having the good thing about being a sniper is that you're taught how to do a lot of things. So I have a lot of arrows in my quiver. Yeah. And that's how I look at sales. I don't want to use every technique that I have on every call because my calls will be 2 hours long.
Yeah.
But I want to know how to cold call. I want to know how to DM. I want to know how to email properly, text properly, just communicate properly in general, take people through a process to persuade them. So I want to have all that in my quiver. So, if I'm running something where the ads revolve around Facebook, if Mark Zuckerberg started to turn this into a charity tomorrow, right, then it's like, however unlikely it is, I want to have a mechanism in which I can make money.
Yeah. You're not just relying on one thing, 100%.
Exactly.
I think that's important. So many salespeople that we train, right? So sometimes salespeople will see DMs in our Facebook groups or in our, some of our group coachings, and they're like, man, the last month with my company, leads are really good, but the last month their leads have gone down. I just don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, number one, you need to do something, right? Because it's not your fault, but it is your problem. So you sitting around complaining for 4 to 6 weeks is only losing you money. So if you need to go out and get another sales job on the side, or if you need to learn how to DM or email or call back old clients and collect on the cash that they still, you need to do something. So you need to have a plan in place that you have the skills to be able to do that, not just go off like leads that the company gives to you. Because I don't know many companies where there's never been a singular week or month where lead gen went down for some reason, or maybe the owner's like, around Christmas we don't want to advertise because it's far more expensive. There's always a company, even huge massive companies that I've seen where that's always an issue at some point. Maybe if it's a week or two. There's always
also with the way the world is these days, the founder can say something on Twitter, and all of a sudden there's no leads for 3 months. Like it's that simple. Like it really is, So we've had a similar issue with an account that we've managed where the owner has decided to go really political on Facebook, and all of a sudden the leads just dry up because you're pissing off half the people.
Yeah.
So
we have a rule in 7th level, no matter what our political beliefs are, we just don't share those on Facebook because, we have clients that are probably more liberal, some that are more conservative, some that are in the middle. And, one way you might really have a great belief system and that's important to you. But when you share that out on social media, you turn off probably half of your audience realistically.
Yeah, there's no good way to do it these days. So I do it. All we want to do is stick to our lane.
We keep to our lane. We'll teach you how to sell, and you can have your own political beliefs. We don't really care. We'll keep ours to ourselves or whatever. I don't even really get into politics, but that's a whole nother story. So, it reminds me of something here. So, we're writing this article for Newsmax. I don't even, if you know this, but I think I told you, they're having me write an article for Newsmax about how can the current president of the United States, President Biden, be more persuasive with world leaders than maybe he was with Putin. And that was an interesting thing because that's the first time that Seventh Level, our company, has ever written something about persuasion in politics. That was an unusual write-up, but it was actually really good. I'll have you read it when it gets published. But It was an interesting viewpoint to be able to look at like how politicians persuade or probably don't persuade. They're really bad at it compared to how we teach salespeople and companies how to persuade. It's quite
I think there's a real lack of. I think it comes down to the environments that they're in, but I think there's a lack of understanding, and you see that in political debates all the time. It's just two people entrenching in their own viewpoints, And some people can be very accomplished theatrical debaters. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you're good at persuading. It just means that you're good at making the audience or all the people that are on your side cheer louder than the other guy.
Yeah, but it doesn't move anybody else from the other side to your way of thinking. That's the problem.
Exactly. And so that's the realm that we deal in. We deal in persuasion. We don't deal in theatrics, It's usually a lot different. So, but I think like if they went out with the aim to persuade but in order to persuade, you have to actually listen. So in order to listen, you have to care about the other person and what they're actually doing. And if you don't, then it's going to be tough.
Well, it's all about, are you just trying to win the argument, or are you trying to win that person over to the way you think? Now, if you want to win them over to your way of thinking, first of all, you have to be open to their way of thinking, right? Because if you're just completely biased and closed down to any thoughts or ideas they have, then what do? They do the same thing to you, and then they just dig in their heels and nothing ever changes. I see so many political debates on Facebook where one is this way and then the other one has this beliefs, and they just argue and post articles that support their position. And nobody that's arguing with them ever says, you're right, I'm going to be a Democrat tomorrow, or I'm going to be a Republican tomorrow. Nobody ever says that, right? They just dig into their own way of thinking. So that's
just kabuki theater.
Yeah, I know, 100%. I don't know how we got into politics, but let's switch back over. So one thing as a salesperson that Matt's trying to get you to understand is that when you have a mental state, you have to have a mental state. You have to also have the right skills, right? The right skills give you what we call collective confidence, right? Because you can have the greatest mental state in the world, but when the prospect answers the other line and you don't know what to say, or more importantly, ask, and they start throwing out a lot of objections and rejection to you because you triggered that, then your mental state is going to be depleted very, very quickly. Okay. So once you learn the right skills, easier to have that mental state, but you also have to have that mental state. One thing that you also have to do is you have to be really disciplined. One thing that people would always tell me is they're like, dude, like your skill levels are really good, blah, 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 but you were the most disciplined person that I've ever met in sales, because I would show up to the office always early, and I would work all of the time while I was there. So my coworkers, my other salespeople, they'd sit around, drink coffee, complain about the leads, talk about, some gossip or whatever. And I would never be part of that because I didn't want to be a part of that. I was in my office, and there'd be certain hours of the day that I called PTB, prospect time blocking. All right. So I actually had it on my little door. I had like this thing, like do not disturb sign. And it said, do not disturb. It's prospect time block time. That's what I would call it, or PTB time. And nobody would come in my office, not the CEO, not the owners. Nobody would come in when that sign was on my door, because I didn't want to be distracted. Okay. And even some of this was, I guess social media was around the same time that I was doing this. But as long as you have like a disciplined part of your day where all you do is prospect and you don't answer your emails, you don't get on social media, you don't watch TV, you're going to be far more successful than probably 90% of salespeople out there who are easily distracted. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely key. And it's also key to do it during times of feast and times of famine. And what ends up happening is that they get this, businesses go through times they have a massive influx of inquiries. All these salespeople just forget about their pipelines. And then they forget that marketing cycles are cycles. They're feast and famine, feast and famine. That's how it works, right? You're never going to get consistent marketing over the year. You might get consistent marketing quarter to quarter.
Yeah.
It's going to be like this inside that quarter, right?
Yeah.
But they're not ready for that. And then all of a sudden their, leads go down for 2 weeks. They don't have a pipeline. Then they start to develop their pipeline, right? Because they don't have leads. So they're trying to do something about it. Then from there, they get busy again. So they forget about it. And it's just a cycle. And it's just like, people could easily, a lot of salespeople could 1.5 or 2x their income if all they did was set aside the time properly to prospect. When I was a personal trainer, right? When I got out of the military, I became a personal trainer. I would never train clients between 6 and 8 p.m. on a Monday.
Yeah.
That is the busiest time in every gym across the world, right? That was my prospecting time. And the beautiful thing, because it's the busiest time in the gym, every single other personal trainer was full during that time. So there was nobody else on the floor prospecting those clients, right? So I spent 2 hours every Monday prospecting. I was like, if I can talk to 50 people in 2 hours, then I'll be able to have meaningful conversations with 20 of them. I can book in 5 of them, right? I can sell 2 of those, and I'll sell 2 people every week. By 2 hours, each contract was worth, $2,500 or whatever it was to me. So I was able to make that, you know what I mean? And I was able to make around $200,000 a year as a personal trainer almost immediately. I made that, I was on that run rate within 16 weeks.
That's a lot for a personal trainer, for sure.
It's about the cap until you start getting into like high-end online stuff. But face-to-face.
Yeah, I think that's so important because it's all about discipline. You have to be disciplined. If you want to be the very best in your field, you want to make a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or more as a sales professional, there's really 3 things that you have to have. First of all, you have to have the right skills. It's just like Michael Jordan says in one of his new books. He's like, look, you want to be great at basketball, you can shoot 1,000 jump shots every day. But if your technique is wrong, if it's off, you're never going to be great because you're shooting the wrong way. It's the same way in sales. You can go out and bust your butt 14 hours a day and still be completely broke because you just don't have the right skills, right? You don't understand how to ask the right questions at the right time. You don't understand the tonality, the delivery. You don't understand how to work with human behavior. So you have to have the right skills. Second of all is you have to be disciplined, extremely disciplined, like Matt and I are talking. During certain hours during the day, you're only prospecting, you're only focused on sales. What I would do, even a lot of times I would hit my quota for the month, like after about 3 days, okay, or maybe a week, right? Already massively blow by it. But that last 2 or 3 weeks that I've already well outdone my quota, I just put freaking the pedal to the metal, man, because I knew that, hey, 2 or 3 months down the road, maybe there is a couple down weeks of leads and I can step off the gas a little bit. So while the leads are good, I'm freaking putting the pedal to the metal. Like I'm not, Thursday at 5, people want to leave, I'm staying. Friday, I could get off at noon, but you know what? I'm staying till 4 or 5 because the leads are coming in and I'm putting the pedal to the metal all the way. And then if leads go down for a week, not as much stress or pressure because you just had your pedal to the metal the whole time and you can work on your pipeline. So that's the second thing. So you got to have the right skills. You got to be disciplined in your approach. And you really have to have the right mindset that you really, even though you're not the business owner, let's say you're a W-2 or 1099 salesperson, you have to have the right mindset to treat your job like its own business. Like when I was in sales as a W-2 person, I worked for a corporation, but I treated it like it was my own business. These leads, I took care of them like they were my own business. So I had the right skills, I was disciplined, and I thought like a business owner itself on how I treated my leads and my prospecting time. And because of that, you put those 3 categories together, you cannot lose. You can literally go from whatever you're selling today and completely switch industries and within a couple months be the number 1 salesperson in that company. And when you're going to find this, when you become like, hey, I'm getting really good, I'm the number 1 person in my office, then you're like, okay, you know what? You have to have the mindset of like, I'm the number 1 in my office, but now I want to be the number 1 in my company. And when you hit that, when you become the number 1 in the company, then you then have to have the mindset, I want to be the number 1 in my industry. And when you hit that, you've outgrown that industry and you need to get into another industry that's going to even pay you higher and be harder, but pay you more. What are your thoughts on those things?
Yeah, absolutely. You just kind of got to go through and make sure that you're following your process. And I think your process is key. And You know what I mean? And then from there, just kind of keep striving to be better and figure out what you can do more and more and more. And then, obviously, if you're happy with where you're at, then you're happy with where you're at, or you can make more money in the current job. Like, you know what I mean? But I think having a really, really distinctive process is just key, because like you should be able to get off a call, and even if you don't make a sale, if you followed your process, you should be able to go, hey, that was a good call.
Yeah, what do you really tell everybody what you mean by that? I think that's really an important key there, that you have a process, and your process, if you follow that process, you're going to get X amount of closes, X amount of commissions. So if you follow that, you have predictable results. Tell us more about that. I think that's important.
Yeah. So like, when I started using NEPQ, like after I learned it, I was like, okay, like, because what I used to do is I used to change the way that I sold depending on like my perception of the prospect, right? So somebody who's making $10 million, I would speak to them totally differently than if they made, $100,000, which isn't really necessary.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And so what I would do is I would like buy into the narratives that they were too busy to talk, or they were this, or they were this, or they were broke. And so then after like learning, okay, like persuading is persuading. It doesn't matter whether you're talking to Jeff or Jeff Bezos. You know what I mean? It's still talking to a human being at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do is just have a process that I know works, and I will never change the process, right? If I have different lead generation mechanisms, I can change my process intentionally, but I don't ever want to change it on the fly, because then I can't predict my outcome. Because I know that if I were to take calls for 7th level and I were to have 15 calls in my diary, I would sell 12 of them.
Yeah.
Every single day of the week. And I would do my process, and I would not change. Now, the first 3 might say no. Doesn't matter. I don't change my process, because the next 12 will say yes.
Yeah.
Or it can be yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no. You know what I mean? It doesn't, I just do my process. And once it's locked in, iron tight, and I have it, and I understand my numbers, it's the same as like, you walk off if you walk off playing golf and you play to your handicap, good day.
Yeah. No, it's so true, because, I remember in my sales career process, right? NEPQ that we're talking about, that stands for neuro emotional persuasion questioning, our methodology. If this is the first time you've been on the show, so I remember the process. So there might be, I really remember there was a couple times where I sold like 1 or 2 sales in a week. Okay, for me that was really bad with the price points. Okay, because typically I was used to doing like 8, 9, 10, and I remember there are a few weeks where I got 1 or 2. And it almost makes you question your process, right? You're just like, what is going on? But then you follow the process, and the next week, guess what happened? Almost everybody closes, right? Yeah. So it's so true. You might have 1 week, let's say your closing percentage is 50%. I'm just throwing out a number. And you close 6 out of 7 every single week. But 1 week, you only get 1 or 2, but you follow that process. And then that next week, you get 10 out of 12. And you're like, well, you know what? I'm right on there. But I think what happens is when you have a process that works, like we're talking about NEPQ, and you're asking the right situation questions to find out their situation, and the right problem awareness questions to find out their problems and the root cause and what it's doing to them and so forth. You follow that sales process A to Z, it gives you predictable results. I think most salespeople don't have a process that really is predictable. They wing it, and then they hope and pray that something they're going to say is going to magically trigger the prospect to want to buy, depending on how they can read that person's personality, which most salespeople do not have the skill sets to do. That's not duplicatable, right? Yeah. And so we call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople on where they hope and pray that something they're going to say is going to trigger that prospect to buy, and it's so unpredictable. It's such a tough way to make a living, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, there's 3 C's, right? Cash flow, commissions, consistency. Those are kind of like the holy grail of, and you've got to sort of, the thing is as well, you've got to take your lumps, and it's very hard to get all 3 perfect. If you've got an account that pays you amazing commissions, chances are that the consistency of that is going to be down. You know what I mean? So it's about finding the balance and the EQ of what you think is best for you in your life.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Matt. Hey, let's end it there. We're right at about 30 minutes. Thank you for being on today. If you're brand new, your next step, if you want to learn more about these type of things that we're talking about, if you want to get a lot of training, join our Facebook group. It's called Sales Revolution. Sales Revolution. There should be a link somewhere here pointing to it. Sales Revolution. We go live in that group about 4 to 5 times a week with different trainings. We even give away like more advanced training that we do to our clients in there certain times of the week. So join Sales Revolution. Matt, thanks for being on. I will see you soon. I'll see everybody else soon. Thank you.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple six-figure, high six-figure, even seven-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training, so be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.